Because you took a big step this week.
I did. I took a
Maybe like a stomp, almost.
charge.
Stomp.
Like if you were just like
Curb stomp.
I'm thinking like what's that movie, Braveheart? I did report my parents to CPS. Welcome back to another episode of Pivot Well. I'm Sarah, and today I have a very special guest. All right, so we're filming. Oh, all right. So as close as we can without being weird. And okay, that's weird.
Oh, so sorry.
Well, welcome back to another episode. Oh, this light is too much. Hold on. I think that's what we need. All right.
Can we just screenshot this for a picture later?
Yeah. Have a very special guest. This is my sister Beth.
Yes. Beth, or Bethany to the wild.
Yeah, that's actually a funny thing. Growing up, I called you Beth, and when she got older, she wanted to be called Bethany.
I always wanted to be called Bethany.
But she was Beth to me. Anyway, and I thought she was visiting. It would be a fun time for her to film a podcast with me. So, yeah.
Let's do it.
We've talked about this for a long time because we just like sit and talk for hours. So,
we do.
I think it'd be interesting to do a podcast. So
we said either podcast or like TikTok channel. So
yeah,
this seems to fit.
I think like because of our distance. So she lives like 9 hours, unfortunately, away from me. So
North Carolina.
For now.
North Carolina.
For now. But yeah, so thanks for doing this with me.
Let's do it.
So first, do you want to tell us a little bit about you and?
Sure. So I'm Bethany, or Beth, as referred to in this podcast, I guess. I work in healthcare IT. I have a daughter who just turned 1 and is the light of all who meet her and see her ever. She's perfection. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I live in North Carolina. Always have.
And I'm from North Carolina, so obviously
represent.
Yes, we're from Western Carolina. Beautiful area.
I now live in Eastern North Carolina, which is far less beautiful, but still the best state. So
better basketball.
Yes, better basketball. Go Tar Heels.
Go Duke. We are a house divided, actually. Yeah, I talked about Duke saving my life. Prior to that, I was actually a Tar Heel fan. So
Duke did also deliver my daughter. So
she should be a Duke fan now. But anyway, so yeah, Beth joined me today because actually the timing lined up, the stars aligned, if you will.
Kismet. And
we've had some things, I guess, progress in our family, and it's easier to talk about it with my sister. Sometimes it's really hard to just talk on the camera. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Because you took a big step this week.
I did. I took a
maybe like a stomp, almost.
Charge,
stomp.
like if you were just like a
curb stomp.
I'm thinking like what's that movie, Braveheart? That's how I felt what that looked like. Yeah.
With the blue face?
Yes. Actually, my face was red from
because you said Braveheart, and in my head I immediately said, this is Sparta, and that is not the same thing.
But that's kind of what I'm thinking, like, charge. I did report my parents to CPS. So,
or in North Carolina, DSS.
Yes. It's funny because it's DCF down in Florida, but
which I found out this week does not stand for Florida. So
no, Department of Child and Family. But yeah, DSS from our hometown is what it was called, and I just figured you guys would go with CPS, Child Protective Services. It was an hour-long conversation.
57 minutes?
To be exact, yeah. And it was the end of the day. They said they would call back with more questions if needed. How did you feel when I told you I did that?
I broke out in hives.
It's a family thing.
It's a family trait. My neck might turn red in this podcast. We'll find out.
I think we have mast cell activation syndrome.
I don't know that mast cell activation syndrome is a real thing. I'm not going to lie.
So I was talking about that with my therapist today. It's basically, yeah, it's a trauma response. it's a way to word it, though. Not everybody has that same thing. So, like, not everybody turns with, like, the red flush. But my sister and I do, if we're very anxious. Like, you'll see it in my neck. I don't know. Is it there right now?
No, mine might be, but no.
It's not. Yeah, so you...
It's the quickest way to tell if I'm angry or sad or overly happy. Like, my whole neck just lights up. So,
My sister... Beth, what is your... First, because obviously I talk a lot about mental health, what has your journey with therapy been? Whatever you're comfortable with, you know, like, obviously.
Yeah. So, have you talked about, like, the unethical therapy from our childhood?
I haven't released that episode. Probably by the time I release this one, yes, I will.
Okay, so I did
She
see
had
the same unethical therapist that my sister had.
Who I would have your license if I could. Oh, I would have your license if I could.
But I think you're retired, so...
Lucky you.
I did have that therapist for a long time. A very long time. Jeez.
We all did, yeah.
And
he was the one who gave us false diagnosis around, like, so my sister, I shared about what happened with me. My sister had very similar experiences with him. So it's not just me that had that
yeah.
happen.
So per that therapist, I was diagnosed bipolar, borderline personality disorder.
Do you know what's funny? Was it, so she would say BPD. Did she know what she was talking about?
You know, I actually think that she thinks that BPD is bipolar, but she told me, like, she said borderline personality. She didn't say BPD for that one.
I remember the first time she said that to me, I thought you had, like, multiple personalities. Borderline personality disorder. That's all I could. My sister doesn't have BPD.
So, all that to say, I did find another therapist as an adult. I was very honest with that therapist. I asked for the tests. Like, I wanted to know if it actually was an issue. I wanted to know that and have, like, the tools in my belt. So he did the tests, and he said that what you have is PTSD and generalized anxiety disorder.
Which is valid.
Brought on by trauma.
Yeah.
But I did not meet any of the markers for bipolar or for borderline, and that therapist at that time actually said that there's no way to diagnose a child with borderline personality disorder.
Yeah.
So he was shocked that that had kind of been put on there.
I'm smiling because in my podcast, I do talk about pathological liars, and I brought up Dr. Gordon Schneider.
Oh, look at you calling him out by name. Okay.
And come at me. I'm in Braveheart mode.
You are in Braveheart mode.
I talked about how he had diagnosed me with bipolar, like, maybe weeks after coming home from the hospital where I was traumatized.
I think that they were planning to diagnose you with that before you ever went into the hospital.
Watch that episode. I'll talk about why. It was weaponized against us. But yeah, although there was months of being sick leading up, that was never addressed. So there was a lot of trauma around that. And then this was just, I think, the opportunity. They put me on antipsychotics in the hospital because I had psychosis from being in the hospital. So my stepmom took that and ran with it. I will ask you about your experience with therapy because it took 9 years of consistent, aggressive therapy on my end. Beth, she's very upset because she had a really good therapist she liked.
I had a really great therapist.
He retired.
His name is Mike. I won't call out all of him like we do Dr. Schneider. But he had a passion for working with veterans with PTSD, and got the opportunity to do that on a contract level with the government. And, you know, I don't begrudge anybody their passion. So
she's going to be in the journey of finding a new one soon, which I am always trying to give my sisters, my friends, everybody, like, guidance on what I think makes a good therapist. But there will be an episode about that.
There you go.
But anyway, so all that to say, her reaction to this was probably a lot different than mine because it's where would I have been 5 years prior to now?
Probably, yeah.
I think 5 years prior because at that point I knew things, but I think because my personality actually is different than yours.
I mean, yes. So, how did you feel making that phone call Monday?
Well, so it took a long time. You know, I wanted to do this for a very long time.
You've almost done it 3 or 4 times prior to this.
Like, Yeah, legitimately. And my reasoning behind not was our relationship with our father is complicated.
That's putting it mildly.
And I didn't want to get him in trouble, if I'm being honest. At the heart of it, I wanted to protect a version of him that I had in my head. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we're going to come back to the version of that, I think. But first, let's finish my question, because I think it's like a 3-part question. So how did you feel physically making that phone call? Like, did it change during the phone call? Was there like a build-up feeling and then an after feeling physically?
Yeah, so...
I would have thrown up, so...
I've always had this thing like where, and you know me, I've been very outspoken. So my sister and I are very different in that sense. Beth is much more of like a peacemaker, and I'm more like, what's the opposite of that?
A peace not maker.
Antagonist? No, I think I like stand on business.
I wouldn't say antagonist, but maybe antagonizer. Antagonist is like the bad guy, and you're definitely not the bad guy.
No, you know what I think I am? I'm like justice is important to me.
Batman.
Like, I want justice. I never kill anyone, but I bring justice. And that's so, whereas...
For Gotham.
Which... Anyway, by the way, my least favorite villain of ever is the first Batman, because he made people go crazy. That's how much mental health is...
Which is ironic, because I happen to know for a fact that the actor who played that character is one of her favorites, so...
I knew him in Peaky Blinders before I saw him in...
Do you know how long it took me to realize they were the same actor? It's an embarrassing amount of time.
I mean, like 1 second seeing those eyes, and I was like, no!
Well, I had seen Batman before Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, no, I'd seen Peaky Blinders first, and then I saw... And I didn't even know what his villain was in the Batman.
The first time he pulls out that bad guy power is a little terrifying, as someone like who is afraid of being gaslit, and then seeing that like his superpower was making you crazy. Like, that's terrifying.
He was the personification of our stepmom. So like, she may not have pulled out a vial and boom, we're all crazy. It was a long period of time, but it's how it felt. So yeah, anyway, I don't know how we got on this. We're both I'm especially ADHD. So I felt like extremely anxious about it, but I have always been one to have this ability to push past it. So like, I'll feel it. I know it's there. I don't care, because I'm so set on like meeting the justice of something, whatever it is. And so in this moment, and it takes a lot to bring me to this point, because we do, and we'll talk about our relationship with our dad and why that was so complicated. But once I see something, I can't unsee it. Would you say that's true?
Sarah is one of the most black and white people you will ever meet. There, no gray.
Something my therapist is trying to work on with me, finding the gray and things, because I think I've learned. No, okay. So here's the thing. It used to be that if I was black and white, and it was verbally black and white. So like, if you said something was wrong, like out of line, I would correct you, and there was no, okay, whatever you say, we'll agree to disagree with me. Mm-hmm. I couldn't do that, which got me in trouble. That was my frequenting to the closet was due to that. I was going to call out whoever it was. But as I've gotten older, what I would say my gray area is the ability to recognize it's not important that they're wrong. So like, they're still wrong in my eyes, but I don't always feel the need to bring justice to everyone. So when it came to this situation, I was fighting this old version of myself who was like, no, this needs to be done. And the new version of like, but is it your problem?
Well, it might have also been hard for you because you're pretty far removed now. You know, you haven't really...
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of interaction there on your part.
I've been out of the household the longest at this point.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about the physical.
Yeah. Real quick, by the way, the physical feelings, it's like a head to toe. It's like an adrenaline rush. Like if you were to get a shot of epinephrine, which I have gotten before, that's what it physically like. And I say that because I think if you're watching this, one of the things that helps me in therapy is identifying physical indicators, because sometimes you may not understand what's going on, but you can feel that physical indicator. And if you can start tying that physical feeling to situations, you can identify triggers. So yeah, that was my head to toe, just like adrenaline.
Okay. What about the emotional aspect, which this might be a lot more to unpack?
No, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I can pretty much say at this point, I mentally was shutting down a part of me that was terrified. So like I said, I learned to just shut down emotion at some point and just do what needed to be done, which is how I got anywhere in life. Served me really well. I call that like my protector, like my strong protector part of myself. If we're doing parts work, talking about IFS, who just puts on noise canceling headphones and does what needs to do. So I did that. So my voice was shaking, like literally the whole time at the beginning. So I would probably say 10 minutes. I was crying at one point because I was reverting back to like this feeling of a little girl trying to tell on her parents. And ironically, that's all I ever wanted someone to do, was tell what we were experiencing or going through.
Do you feel like you like harnessed that?
What do you mean?
Like you said it's all you ever wanted someone else to do for you. Do you feel like you like latched onto that in this scenario because you felt like you were doing it for someone else?
No, I didn't recognize that till the end. I've always been a protector, though, of my siblings, of my dad, I'm just fiercely protective of people. And at that moment, I felt there was not just one person's. Originally, it started, I felt that there was someone to protect. And as the conversation progressed with the social worker, many, many people I had wanted to protect over the years came out, ironically. I brought up a lot of foster kids that I felt had been done wrong. And at the end of it, I ended by saying, this isn't just me telling you what others have gone through. This isn't just secondhand information. Like, this is what I went through too. This is a pattern.
Wow. And how did it feel for you?
Wait, what did that make you feel?
I don't know. I'm just like, I'm trying to put myself in your scenario, making that phone call, and it's a visceral reaction. Like, I don't know that I could do it. Obviously, you did ask me, you texted me while you were on the phone with them and asked me if they had questions, if I would be willing to talk to them, because I lived back home more recently than you did. And
through some of the things I was reporting.
Yeah. And I said yes. And obviously I was going to do it. Sometimes I use you as my diving board. Because like if I know I need to do something, or I should do something, or I need to be accountable for something, like I know you'll make me do it.
And the time I got on the phone, Beth was going to confront someone, and I was going to be on there with her, and it was our dad. Spoiler alert.
You did confront him.
Well, what? It was supposed to be us. And it ended up...
Oh, we're talking about two different times. I'm talking about when I actually went, and then you called him and like yelled at him after I went, and you like...
Fiercely protective.
That was... Yeah, I broke out in hives that day too, so...
Yeah, no, so there was one time like we got on a 3-way phone call, and it ended up that Beth...
couldn't do it.
Dropped off.
I did drop off.
It's like a corporate call. I gotta jump off, guys. I got a hard stop at an hour.
I gotta take this.
But you guys enjoy. I kept going.
For like an hour afterwards. Yeah. Thanks for running my meeting for me.
It's a purge for me. So it's like years of I didn't have a voice. When I have those moments where I'm able to like defend us, myself, anyone, it's a purge.
I am the opposite, and it probably is the lack of therapy. Like, I can never be in a scenario where I feel out of control. In any form, if there is any form of control taken away from me, I shut down. I cannot, that is not going to happen. But
wouldn't that be like the ultimate control?
No, because I can't control the consequences.
What consequences are you afraid of?
Confrontation.
But what's the consequence of it?
Confrontation.
No, that's not the consequence.
The subsequent confrontation.
What about it?
I can't do confrontation.
Yeah, but why?
I cannot do confrontation.
I want to make her dig into this. At the heart of it, what about confrontation makes you most uncomfortable?
I don't know. R.I.P. Mike. He's not dead, but R.I.P. Mike.
I talked about my first episode, secondhand therapy. I wonder if Beth hasn't gotten a therapist because I do these. I would guess, just knowing you don't want to hurt people's feelings, and that's the consequence.
I cannot hurt people's feelings.
So that's the consequence you're afraid of, not the confrontation. It's the hurting people's feelings.
I cannot hurt someone's feelings. Like, I go so far out of my way to not hurt other people's feelings that it's terrible.
And to me, if they can hurt my feelings, I can hurt theirs.
Yeah, no, I can't do that.
So I don't believe in astrology, right? And things like that. But
more power to those of you that do.
I do think there's something to... Okay, so from all of this, what do you guys think that my astrology sign is? Like, I don't necessarily know if I believe in that, but it's just funny because I have seen... Yeah. Just curious what you guys think in the comments. Anyway, back to this. Oh, yeah. If someone hurts me, it's fair game.
No. If someone hurts me, I try to figure out what I did to deserve it. R.I.P. Mike.
Which, by the way, used to be me. Wildly. My friend from high school and my little sister and I were sitting in a room, and Caitlin said something like, "You're a people pleaser." And Lizzie was like, "No, she's not." And Caitlin was like, "Yeah."
Okay, but maybe because the only thing you are more than a people pleaser is a protector. And so because you're so fiercely protective of your siblings, we've always seen the protector. Whereas maybe you didn't feel in high school specifically that you had to protect Caitlin as much.
That's exactly what I think it is. Caitlin will protect herself.
Oh, and Caitlin will protect herself.
So I never felt the need to protect Caitlin. Although there have been a couple times and I said I would. And I would. But my siblings, no one is quite so... Maybe I enable this.
A little bit, probably.
Anyway.
So this isn't about me.
This isn't... Yeah, this isn't about me. So, anyway, back to my story.
ADD.
Oh, okay. So, let's rewind to why would I be... Where did Beth and I first get, like, our people pleaser from?
So, I don't think that you started with a people pleaser. But that is part of the problem, which we're going to talk about. Like, you and I, from the time we were babies...
Neither did you, by the way.
Well, but yes, but no. So, interesting thing, and I try very hard not to do this with my daughter because I've recognized it about us. You know, we got assigned roles that people have always talked about. Like, even from the time we were tiny babies. Like, oh, Bethany, you were an easy baby. You always just wanted everyone to be happy, and you wanted, you know, you just were easygoing, and you weren't complicated, and you weren't difficult. And we almost never had to, you know, punish you. We almost never had to do anything, and you just took care of yourself. And then old Tornado Sarah rolls in.
There's even a story, I think, that really shows this. So our birth mom will tell the story, and it's about when I was really little. Beth would, I don't want to say bully. You would
play too rough.
Yeah, she was young too, so she didn't know how to play with a baby. And our birth mom would say, if you aren't careful, she's gonna
she's gonna beat you up,
be bigger than you, or you know, she'll be able to defend herself. And then one day there's like a scene of where like I'm chasing Beth with a baseball bat, and I guess she had deserved it.
I'm gonna kill you. But but that was between you and I. As far as like the way that like our grandparents, our parents, whoever talked about us, you were stubborn and you were going to do your own thing, and you didn't care what people thought, and you were going to do it, and it didn't matter. And and the difficult child and the easy child, and it made life hard. Like even being the easy child.
But then I became the easy child. I wonder if these stories attributed to me feeling I didn't need others because I was so difficult that I felt maybe I was too much to handle.
I don't know. Maybe. We'll dig into
Put
that
a pin
later.
in that. So yeah, but there was one person who we always felt this need to protect.
Yeah. From a very early age. And that would be our dad.
Yeah.
I actually have a made-up memory of our dad. Like, and I fiercely protect this memory. He has said it never happened. Our birth mom has said it never happened. But in my head, like, I can walk you through.
I know which one it is. And do you know who did that? Sorry. Tell the story.
So I have this memory, this very vivid memory of walking with our dad into the doctor's office where our mom worked, and he was bringing her Valentine's Day flowers, and she like threw them in the trash in front of him and said she didn't want to be married to him anymore.
Do you know the only person who ever threw flowers in the trash of his? Our stepmom.
Yeah, but this memory, like, I can tell you how that doctor's office smelled. I can tell you what the flowers looked like. I can tell you what my dad was wearing. But, like, and it's not either one of them, and they hate each other. They don't agree about anything, but they have both independently told me that never happened that way, and we weren't there for it.
And I have a faint memory of it because I have heard you talk about it before, actually, ironically. But this is the thing. So I actually, my therapist has said something that I love it. And she said, it's not what happens to you, it's the response to it. So we've seen our stepmom coach foster children about abuse that never happened. And it became a real thing to them. Mm-hmm. Some have talked about how they did not have that thought prior to her, but now they can almost see the things she coached them. And it was horrific things she was coaching them to say, which I reported.
Well, and what's crazy is she coached them so much, like, in front of us, I almost feel the memory sometimes of some of those things. Like, I could almost, like, tell you almost like I watched it as a movie.
Yeah. We would have to do grids for her, which I reported.
So grids, just for anyone who doesn't know, foster children who are typically through private companies, who take on advocacy for the children. They require like a written log of like a daily log of the children, just a brief
their activities,
any notable behaviors, and then there's like a grading scale, which we never had to do the grading scale, so I couldn't explain that.
Because that was the easiest part.
Yeah, I couldn't explain that to you. But
anything that required typing.
The daily log, which you're supposed to do every day, and we very regularly...
Who did it the most?
So while I lived there, it was me.
You know why?
I type faster.
No. Because I would confront our stepmom every time she would say something happened and they didn't.
That's also true, but I also type faster.
So that like fiercely, the black and white really, I was like, that didn't happen. Yes, it did. You weren't there. Like, when are you ever there that we're not there? Like, we raised these kids, like all of them, and they will say that. Like all the ones who are of sound mind will say that. I don't mean that rudely. I genuinely, yeah. So prior to all of this, though, rewind back to how our dad was when we were younger. I'm going to tell who I saw my dad as. I'll give a brief whatever. You tell me who, you see him as. So you guys can understand the conflict that came into everything leading up to me reporting them, but why it took so long. So I have really good memories of my dad prior to my stepmom coming into our life. He would take us on bike rides. I remember going to like the flower shop, getting flowers. I love the fall because I remember the leaves. I remember the first time. It's okay. We feel our feelings on this channel. I remember the first time I got to make it up the hill, the big hill.
I never did that. So
I was in gymnastics. You did, though.
I walked it up the hill. No, I never once rode the bike all the way up.
I did, and I was very proud. I remember him taking us flowers at school. But I also know that, like, he to me was, I realized now, like, you would have a fun, like, uncle or cousin or something, like a brother almost maybe, because he was also working. So he worked from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m., which in the morning we were, like, he would come home and sleep. Like, I don't know, we just didn't see him a ton unless he was off work. Grandma and Grandpa watched us mostly. But you have a different memory because you were with him. So there's 2.5 years between us, but 2.5 years when I'm, 5 and you're 7 or 8 is quite a big difference.
Yeah. I've said it to him many times, and I'm going to try to do it without crying.
It's okay. We cry on this channel. We feel our feelings. Pull up a chair. Brene Brown.
I've always called him, like, my North Star. So, our world was... We did a lot between, like, moving. We moved in with my grandparents, but we spent time with my other grandparents, and we had the house that we had lived in while they were married.
Green Creek.
And, and even after, like, even the idea after he married our stepmom, like, he was always there. Now, what role that was may have changed a little bit over time, but he was the one person we were always with.
In your eyes. In
my eyes. And yeah, I mean, I remember him specifically while they were separate, while our parents were separated / divorced. There's some whatever about the timeline of that. But, and it's crazy because he was like the age I am now. And that's crazy to think about. But, he worked second shift, but he always took us to school. He was always home in time to take us.
Well, but you were in school. I wasn't in school.
Yeah. He was always there to take me to school. He always came to lunch at the lunchroom on Friday. Because he didn't have to work on the Friday night. So he could rest in the morning, come to lunch, and that would be kind of the thing that woke him up. I remember, like, he wanted to be involved. He did the sign. He did the sign out front at the school.
Oh,
like the little announcement board sign that you see in front of churches and schools and stuff. Like, he did that because he wanted to be involved. And
he had the boxes of letters.
He had the box of letters, and we would play with them, and we'd get in trouble because we got them out of order. But yeah, like, I think at that point, even though he wasn't sure what to do or how to do it, he was just trying to be a good dad.
Yeah, the single dad. Like, that's the dad, like, I love.
Yeah.
And I mean, I echo everything you said. I think until there was one day, I think in therapy, I finally acknowledged, like, the betrayal that I felt from him, because he was also kind of my North Star. I would say more like like a superhero to me, because in a world of villains, and to this day, and I said this on the report to DSS, I don't think he intentionally ever hurted. I don't think he ever hurt any of us intentionally. I think to this day he has a lot of regrets of the hurt that he has caused. He's just kind of tangled in this web of abuse, which I also said on the report, emotional abuse. And so I have had to grieve the dad that I knew, and I have told him, you aren't the dad that I used to know. It's like he's dead.
I've never been able to, like, say that to him, and I spend a lot of time trying to flesh out the dad I went to lunch with, and
You know what? You have protectors, and so you have protected. You've put up a wall around that dad.
I have, and
a very strong wall.
And one thing that's really hard is my dad and I are a lot alike. We're a lot alike, and so I can empathize with him on a very deep level, and I can't do that with a lot of people. I'm not typically a deeply empathetic person. I'm a very sympathetic person.
No, I think you're empathetic.
I don't think I am. Because
with people you know. With me.
But not even people I know. Like you, yes.
I don't know if you're capable, maybe. I think you blocked that out. I think you have the ability to be empathetic, but yeah. Sorry, that's just my own opinion of you. Like, I'm just thinking of you as...
I feel like I'm more sympathetic than empathetic.
Yeah, and I'm the opposite of that.
Yeah, you can't give sympathy for... I don't know if we curse on this podcast, but... No.
No. Okay, and I want to talk about that because people think I'm really harsh. They call me kind of like abrupt, mean, a bully, not compassionate. Do you know why? How do you think I got to where I am?
Patricia.
You've seen the movie Split.
But Patricia.
I have a Patricia who takes care of things. And so it's empathy. And you're actually 100% right. I think, what did I need to do to get to here? And I give that to you. I had no room in my life for... Think about therapy today, actually. I had no room in my life for sadness because it got in the way of surviving. And so I would push past those feelings. And so when I do that to someone else, and often people get upset with that, or like, I just want you to say it's okay. I have a hard time with that because I actually care. No, and if I care about the person, this is how I am. Mm-hmm. I have worked on practicing with our little sister, not being quite so abrupt because I see her almost like a daughter in a sense. And so I'm trying to be compassionate to her, but I weave in there these threads of that.
Yeah, I know there have been several times where you and I have been having a conversation about something that's difficult for one reason or another. And I'll finally get to the point where I'm like, you know what? I didn't need this. I needed my sister. I didn't need a therapist. And I don't mean that meanly. Like,
that's the funny thing. I don't ever take that meanly. I was like, yeah, okay, valid.
And you do. And then when I say that, like, you are immediately able to like switch gears.
Yeah.
To, oh, okay, if that's what you need, here.
I literally said, oh, I didn't really, okay. Because I jumped to fixing it for you. Because that's my love language, is fixing. Like, I'll fix a problem.
Or she'll try anyway.
No. I won't stop until I fix the problem.
That's facts.
Here we are. Not like years and years and years. And I finally reported because that was the fix I knew. It's kind of like Doctor Strange in Marvel.
How many superheroes are we going to reference in this podcast?
And he has the ability to see like 1,000 ways, and he knows like the one that's the most effective.
Yeah.
That's me. I can sit and I can say, yeah, you could do this or you could do this.
See, I see Doctor Strange as like a problem. Because that's the control in me that is watching the 1,000 different ways it could play out.
But with the...
You see the one, I see the other 900.
Oh, no, I see the other, and then I get rid of them because they're not relevant.
No, I think that the other 999 might happen.
I had to learn that in therapy, though. I worked on what I call decatastrophizing. So, like, I'll say, okay, what happens if this happens? And I go through every scenario. But then, in my mind, because of how it is, I'm very much an intellectual. I will, like, almost, like, statistically decide which one's most realistic.
Yeah. Which you get from our dad.
I also am a lot like our dad. She's, I think, emotionally like our dad. I am intellectually like our dad. And so, what is the difference of how he treats us?
I mean, there's an example.
Yeah,
there's a story for this.
Story that I think stands out the most. So I'll first tell what happened and then what led to my statement in the car with him.
Yeah.
I remember this conversation. This was actually before, I don't know if you know, this was before I moved out. I wanted to tell him about what was going on at home, and I was afraid of hurting his feelings. I said, I need to take note of that, though. Well, anyway, I was afraid of hurting his feelings, and he said, Sarah, I'm a big boy. I can handle it. Like, just tell me what you're trying to say. Noted. For the rest of my life. Noted. And so from the moment I had the freedom to tell him my feelings, he was a big boy. He could handle it. So I told him. And I would tell him, you know, whatever it was, I would get really aggressive. We would have like fights, yelling at each other. My dad is like Beth. He avoids confrontation, and I push him to go, like, to confront, because I'm like, I actually want you to yell at me. He one time said, like, I can't do this without, like, yelling at you. And I was like, yell at me. Like, I'm a big girl.
Like, you're just looking for the raw emotion.
Yeah, like, I want to know. I don't want your sugar-coated la la land that you live in.
Yeah.
So we were in the car, and Beth and you were talking to him about our family history.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in the driver's seat, and as they were going through our relatives, I started to cry.
We were talking about my grandpa. Our grandpa.
And his family.
Yeah.
We were taken from that family when our stepmom came into our life, and that was really hard on me. And so all of a sudden, I was taken back to this young girl who loved her relatives, loved my grandpa is my everything, as you guys know. And I just was sobbing. And I don't know how we got to the point of, I don't know if he asked me what's wrong, and I was like, whatever it was.
He had made a comment, and it wasn't that he was trying to specifically be negative about Grandpa, but it had come across in like a negative.
He did, yes.
Yeah. Because we were talking about which one of the siblings he has 4 siblings, so there are 5 of them total, and we were talking about which ones were most like Grandma and which ones were most like Grandpa. And it was something we said about one of them, I don't even know if it was him or one of his siblings. This sibling is like Grandpa because of this. And he's like, oh, well, I would think that it's because he, you know, this sibling, or even it might have been himself, like I genuinely don't remember, was like too harsh or was, and it was kind of just like off the cuff. Like he wasn't trying to really.
He rarely will say negative things about our grandparents, our whole life actually.
Yeah, no.
So as we've gotten older, I think it's harder for him. I think he wants to tell what he went through, and I'm like, tell your therapist. So you said, I think you actually made a comment, like, oh.
I said, and I have actually said it to him multiple times, if you want to have a productive conversation with Sarah, like, you cannot talk about Grandpa like that. Really at all. Like, Grandpa is kind of like a trigger for you. Like, and I think
I'm literally saying,
because even like talking about good things about Grandpa, if our dad is doing it, then it's you are upset because you lost out on some of that. And God forbid he decides he's going to try to talk like negatively about them, and then that fierce protector.
Yeah, because he was my North Star.
Yeah,
he was the only person who believed me.
Before you believed yourself.
Before I believed myself, because he was abused by his stepmom too.
Yeah.
Ironically, and he saw the patterns.
Yeah.
So you said that, and
because not only am I not confrontational with myself, I can't stand for people to fight around me. Like
it's the Peacemaker. You were trying to stop a fight before you started because you knew I was not gonna. I didn't care. I would have fought.
And we were taking him to the airport, and I didn't want, like, the trip had already had some kind of, like,
awkward things,
awkward connotations and awkward notes. And I knew that if it didn't stop then, if he kept going, even though he didn't realize the path he was going down, that, like, it was going to fall apart.
Explosive.
And so I was just trying to, like, diffuse that before it actually ever happened.
One thing led to another, and I think I said something like, Beth feels this way too. And he goes, somehow we got to that point. And he said, Beth, is that true? And you were very uncomfortable because
I had been pushed into
Oh, corner.
a corner.
And
Literally of the vehicle.
I said, she's not going to tell you because she wants to protect you all the time. Because you've made us feel like we have to protect you. And
No. You were actually trying to encourage me.
No, I know. I said, I said, I think something like that. I was like, but you need to hear it from her. So Beth, there was and I said, one time Daddy said something to me that I feel like you need to hear because maybe it'll help you tell your truth. I wanted her to have the opportunity to tell him how she felt. Because maybe you don't want that. But I don't think that's fair to you either, not to be able to tell him how you feel. But that's not my place. Fixer. So I said, Daddy one time told me he wants us, like he's not, he's a big boy. He can handle it. He's an adult. Like you can talk to him like he's an adult.
And he didn't stop you. Mm-hmm. But like immediately after you said that, with almost no hesitation, he was like, well, sometimes it's nice to be protected.
And the rage.
And it was, and obviously at that point I said, okay.
And I felt this rage because I have felt before that my dad, and this is nothing on you, I have felt that my dad loved my sister more than me. I felt like he protected my sister more than me. And he has even said because she needs it more than I did, which is really hurtful to a kid. Like, can you imagine if you have another child and you say, well, I don't need to protect her because she doesn't need it as much as you do.
Yeah, no, I would never think that.
Right. But I have become my own parent in a lot of ways. And I was furious. And I was like, okay, there it is. Yep, there it is. Like, I knew it.
Needless to say, my goal of not making the end of the trip awkward did not happen.
Yeah. And I was just, at that point, that was that moment of, he doesn't care about me as much as he cares about others. He has a hierarchy. Stepmom, him. No, stepmom, you. Him, me.
I would disagree.
What would you say? You would put you above her?
No. Nobody comes above her. Nobody.
No one comes above her.
Nobody comes above her, with the exception of, like, God. But... And...
No, I mean...
No, I'm protecting him.
No, tell me what you feel.
Because he's not here. What I want to say is her, him, you and I, but then the rest of our siblings. Like, there's definitely not the same level for you and I. Because I have seen...
There's a trauma bond with us.
A trauma bond, like, you can yell at him. Have yelled at him.
Now, not as a kid though.
Even let's talk about it as adults. You have yelled at him. Mm-hmm. Some of our other siblings, who are also adults, have yelled at him, and he will not take it. Like, it's disrespectful. He will not allow it.
He doesn't see them as adults though. I had to get to the point. Now, you weren't there for this part of it. There was a time when he would not. We had I had a confrontation with him and my stepmom. And I had someone else in the room with me to vouch for what was about to happen. I had never in my life confronted my stepmom and him. And he did try to say, you're being disrespectful. And I was like, respectful out the window a long time ago.
Yeah.
I had to, I think, show him I was an adult, though. And I think he realized. Because I think they have yet to get to that point of independence where he sees them that way.
Maybe. That's definitely possible.
But, because he did not tolerate disrespect to elders.
Yeah, no.
And it took a lot for me to start confronting him because I felt I was being disrespectful. But again...
Well, we have been taught a very skewed version of certain things, and respect is one of them.
Yeah. Respect is a one-way street in that house.
Like, truth is disrespectful. there.
Yeah. Yeah, if truth
If it
impedes
doesn't-
on respect, then it's...
Disrespectful.
Which is ironic, because, like, what was his number one thing growing up?
No lies.
He hated... Like, I remember the spanking I remember from him was lying.
Yeah, I got 5 spankings maybe in my life. Yeah, 3 of them were about being dishonest.
Yeah. Half the time you drug me into that mess.
You're welcome.
But yeah, the dynamic... And I think when I showed him that side of me, I actually think it further proved to him that I don't need him as much as others do.
Yeah.
I think it hurt.
Well, I think as a parent, you know, finding out, because you have been pretty honest with him about how you feel about him and how you feel about your relationship with him and how you feel about your dynamic.
I mean, I did say, like, I don't know you. You're not the dad.
And I think
Makes me-
that would be earth-shattering.
Yeah.
What makes me really sad...
Do you want me to comfort you?
No. What makes me really sad is it probably was earth-shattering, but it wasn't enough to make him change. It wasn't enough to make him choose you over the pain. And
I think to this day, he knows. We've actually argued as to whether or not he knows.
I don't think we've argued with each other. I think we agree.
That she's abusive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You and I have...
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Where there was a point where we didn't, but I said straight to him, and he won't acknowledge it, but I know he knows.
What's funny is he won't acknowledge it, but he won't refute it.
Yeah. Like, he will say everything, but so he'll be like, if I had a magic wand, I would go back and do things different. But then you wouldn't have met Matthew, and Beth wouldn't have met her husband, and they wouldn't have had their daughter. And, like, so basically saying, if I could, I would go back and change to when I met her. But if I do that, then all of these things would happen. So, in his mind, it's justified. It's Stockholm Syndrome in my head. Like, if I were to unprofessionally diagnose him, it would be because he has Stockholm Syndrome. And he is so convinced. What was the first thing she did when she came into our life?
I wouldn't call it the first thing.
Yeah, but like one of the first big...
Like when things started to change? Mm-hmm. It was little things.
But what was the scheme of it?
Like the isolation from our grandparents.
Everyone was a problem. She would say everyone was talking about her.
Or us.
Or us. She would, like, weaponize it. So if you look up, like, narcissists, sociopaths, BPD, true BPD, one of the first things they'll do is isolate their victims from everyone around them.
From the support system.
From the support system. And that's what she did. And it got to the point where she eventually started... Like, the lies came. That's where I started, like, I was having this conflicting, like, no, that's not true. No, he would never say that. He did say that. He did say that. No, he didn't. Yes, he did. To the closet.
You brush that off so easily.
That's kind of, at this point, a joke. I don't know if I've mentioned being locked in the closet on the hair. I was locked in the closet a lot for punishment. And my dad will go, so this is a really good example of how my dad tries to wrestle with the abuse. He'll say, you weren't locked in the closet because there was no lock on the door.
Yeah.
And I will say, that's worse. I was so scared that I couldn't leave the closet. So he's trying really hard because I don't think he can. If he were to say my daughters were abused under my nose, it would shatter his world. Because he does, at his heart, love us.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about that.
To this day, I've never questioned that my dad is loving me at the best he's capable of loving me. I've never questioned his love for us. But that's where that hierarchy of who does he love more comes into play. And I don't think he ever expected that to happen in his life.
No, I don't think so either.
But here we are. All right, so we're going to pause here. That concludes today's part. We'll come back for part 2. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and follow along for more as we continue this journey. And also hit the notification button so you can know when our next episode drops. Thanks for watching. The idea of it was, what is the comparison, I think, of our feelings around the reporting itself?
Yeah.
I have to protect me because you never did.
But you're not wrong. Like, you're not wrong, obviously. And there it is. There's the me protecting him part coming out. Because I struggle so much with hearing, like... And it's all across the board, right? Like, I don't like hearing you talk negatively about him, but I would say the same thing to him. Mm-hmm. And have. Like, I have said the same thing to him. I don't know how much of this we want to go into on a podcast.
We can cut it out.